Welcome to Speak Easy English. Today's story is about hunger, work, dreams, and the power of ambition. In a large and busy city, there stood a grand and beautiful hotel. It was the finest hotel in the whole city. Rich and important people came from all over the world to stay there. The hotel had shining marble floors, soft golden lights, and waiters in clean white uniforms who served the guests with great care. And it was to this grand hotel that a poor young boy named Suresh came one day, looking for any work he could find. Suresh was 16 years old. He had grown up in a poor family in a small town, and he had come to the big city with nothing but a small bag and a big heart full of hope. He had no money, no education beyond his early school years, and no one to help him. But Suresh was hungry, not only for food, but for a better life. "I do not care how small the work is," he told the hotel manager. "Please, just give me a chance. I will work harder than anyone." The manager looked at the thin, poor boy and felt some pity. "The only work I have," he said, "is washing the dirty dishes in the kitchen. It is hard, hot work, and the pay is very small. Do you still want it?" Suresh's face lit up with joy. "Yes, sir," he said. "Thank you, sir. I will be the best dishwasher you have ever had." And so Suresh began his life at the Grand Hotel, standing at a sink in the hot kitchen, washing endless piles of dirty dishes from morning until night. The work was hard and tiring. His hands grew rough and red from the hot water. The pay was barely enough to live on. He slept on a thin mat in a tiny room he shared with 3 other workers. But Suresh never complained. In fact, he washed those dishes as if they were the most important task in the world. He made every plate shine like new. Most workers did only what they were told and nothing more. But Suresh was different. He had a hunger to learn and to grow. When his own work was finished, he did not rush off to rest. Instead, he watched and he learned. He watched the cooks and learned how the fine dishes were made. He watched the waiters and learned how they served the guests with grace. He watched the manager and learned how the whole hotel was run. He asked questions. He paid attention to everything. He soaked up knowledge like a dry sponge soaks up water. The other workers laughed at him. "Why do you work so hard, Suresh?" they said. "You are only a dishwasher. You will always be a dishwasher. Do your job, take your small pay, and stop dreaming." People like us do not rise in the world. But Suresh just smiled. "Today I am a dishwasher," he said. "But I will not always be one. I am learning. And the man who keeps learning never stays in the same place for long." The hotel manager began to notice the hard-working young boy. He saw how Suresh always arrived early and stayed late. He saw how clean and careful his work was. He saw how Suresh helped others without being asked. One day, when a waiter was sick, the manager needed someone to serve the guests. He thought of Suresh. "You have watched the waiters for months," he said. "Do you think you can do it?" "Yes, sir," said Suresh. "I have been waiting for this chance." Suresh became a waiter, and he was a wonderful one. He had learned so much from watching that he served the guests perfectly. He was polite, attentive, and kind. He remembered the names of the guests. He remembered what they liked. He always wore a warm and honest smile. The guests began to ask for him by name. "Where is that fine young waiter, Suresh?" they would say. "He always makes us feel so welcome." But Suresh did not stop learning. As a waiter, he learned even more about the hotel. He learned about money and about pleasing customers. He learned what made guests happy and what made them want to return. He saved every coin he could from his small pay. He still slept on a thin mat, and he still wore simple clothes, because he was saving for his future. While the other waiters spent their pay on small pleasures, Suresh invested his pay in his dream. Suresh did something else that set him apart from all the other workers. On his one day of rest each week, when the others slept late or wandered the markets, Suresh went to a small night school in the city. He had left school as a boy to find work, and his reading and writing were poor. But Suresh knew that to rise in the world, he would need more than willing hands. So with his tired body and his eager mind, he learned to read well, to write clearly, and to do the sums a business owner must know. He even saved his coins to buy old books about hotels and business, and he read them late at night by a small lamp, after his long day's work was done. The other workers laughed at him. "You are a waiter, not a scholar," they said. "Why do you tire yourself with books?" But Suresh only smiled. "The hands earn today's bread," he answered, "but the mind builds tomorrow's house." Year by year, while the others stood still, Suresh grew, not only in skill but in knowledge. And slowly, he was changing himself from a simple village boy into a man who could one day run a great business. He understood a truth that few people ever learn, that the most important investment a person can ever make is the investment in himself. Years passed, and Suresh rose higher and higher. From a waiter, he became the head of the waiters. Then he became an assistant manager. With each new position, he learned more and saved more. He never grew proud. He treated the lowest dishwasher with the same respect he gave to the richest guest, for he had not forgotten where he came from. Everyone in the hotel, from the cooks to the cleaners, loved and respected him. After many years of hard work and careful saving, Suresh had learned everything there was to know about running a hotel. And he had saved a good amount of money. But it was not nearly enough to own a grand hotel of his own. So Suresh started small. He took all his savings and, with a loan he had earned through years of trust, he opened a tiny guest house on a quiet street. It had only a few rooms. But Suresh ran it with all the skill and care he had learned over the years. His little guest house was clean, welcoming, and run with such kindness that travelers loved it. They told their friends. Soon, the little guest house was always full. With the money it earned, Suresh opened a second one, and then a third. He worked day and night, just as he always had. He treated his workers well, because he remembered being a poor worker himself. His business grew and grew. But the road to success was not always smooth. In the early days of his guest house, Suresh faced a hardship that nearly destroyed everything he had built. A powerful businessman, who owned several large hotels nearby, did not like the competition from Suresh's small but beloved guest house. He tried to drive Suresh out. He spread false rumors about the guest house. He lowered his own prices for a time, just to steal away Suresh's customers. For several hard months, Suresh's rooms sat empty, and his small savings began to disappear. He fell deep into worry. One sleepless night, Suresh sat alone, wondering if he should give up and go back to being a waiter. But then he remembered the lesson of his youth, standing at the kitchen sink with his rough red hands. "I did not rise from a dishwasher to an owner by giving up at the first hardship," he told himself. "I rose by working harder than everyone else, and by treating people with more kindness than anyone else. That is what I will do now." So Suresh did not lower himself to fight with rumors and tricks. Instead, he poured even more care into his guests. He greeted every traveler personally. He remembered their names and their needs. He made his little guest house feel like a true home, something the big, cold hotels could never offer. And slowly, the truth won out. Travelers who had been fooled by the rumors returned, and they told others, "Do not believe the lies." That guest house is the kindest, most welcoming place in the city. One day, an old and very wealthy guest, a wise man who had traveled the whole world, stayed at Suresh's guest house. He watched how hard Suresh worked and how kindly he treated everyone, even in the face of his troubles. Before he left, the old man called Suresh to him. In all my travels, he said, I have stayed in the grandest hotels in the world. But I have rarely felt as welcome as I have felt here. You understand that a business is not built on buildings or on money. It is built on trust and on the human heart. Do not ever lose that, and you will go further than all your rivals. The old man's words gave Suresh great strength. And the wise man was right. Within a year, the powerful businessman's tricks had failed completely, while Suresh's guest house was more loved and more full than ever. Suresh had learned that hardship is a test, and that the way to pass it is not with anger or tricks, but with patience, hard work, and unshakable kindness. Many years later, something amazing happened. The grand and beautiful hotel where Suresh had once washed dishes was put up for sale. The old owner was retiring. When Suresh heard the news, his heart filled with a deep and powerful feeling. This was the very place where he had started with nothing, the place where he had washed dishes with his rough red hands and slept on a thin mat. And now, after all these years of hard work, Suresh had become wealthy enough to buy it. And so he did. Suresh, the poor boy who had begged for any work, the boy who had washed the dishes in the hot kitchen, became the owner of the grandest hotel in the city. On the day he took ownership, Suresh walked through the shining marble halls, and his eyes filled with tears. He walked into the kitchen and stood before the very sink where he had once washed dishes as a frightened 16-year-old boy. The workers of the hotel gathered around their new owner, amazed by his story. The old manager, now very old, was still there. He came forward with tears in his eyes. I gave you a job washing dishes, he said. I never imagined that one day you would own this whole hotel. How did you do it, Suresh? Suresh smiled at all of them, the cooks, the cleaners, the waiters, and the dishwashers. There is no magic in my story, he said. When I started here, I was poorer than any of you. But I made a choice. I chose to see every job, even washing dishes, as a chance to learn. I never said, this work is below me. I never said, this is not my job. I did every task with all my heart, and I learned everything I could. I was hungry, not just for food, but for growth. While others rested, I learned. While others spent, I saved. And step by step, year by year, that hunger carried me from the sink to the top. Suresh kept the hotel more beautiful than ever, and he became famous for how kindly he treated his workers. He created a special rule. Every year, he would choose the hardest-working young person in the lowest job, the dishwashers and the cleaners, and he would give them a chance to rise, just as he had been given a chance long ago. And to every young worker who came to him with big dreams and empty pockets, Suresh would say, do not be ashamed of starting small. Every great building begins with a single stone. The job you have today does not decide who you will become. What decides your future is how you do that job and how much you are willing to learn. Treat the smallest task as if it were the most important in the world. Stay hungry to learn. Save for your dream. Be patient and work hard, and never look down on anyone. For the dishwasher of today, with a hungry heart and willing hands, can become the owner of tomorrow. And that is the story of the waiter who owned the hotel. A story that reminds us that no honest work is too small to be the first step of a great journey, and that ambition, joined with hard work and humility, can carry a person from the very bottom to the very top.